Welcome to the next session of the True Methods MSP Accelerator brought to you by SolarWinds MSP. I'm Bob Penland, joined by Gary Pica.
So here we are, Bob. We're at the beginning of our course. So we're going to use this session really to uh, set the stage for what we're going to talk about in the other lessons.
hmm
So I want to start by just a quick recap of what we see as the biggest MSP challenges. You know, MRR, monthly recurring revenue sales. This is very common, right? That people
Yeah.
struggle to be able to consistently add new recurring revenue, um, profitability. Uh, Trying to scale a company and be able to maintain increased profitability, common issue. Definitely hiring and retaining top talent right now is a huge issue in the industry. Scalability, we find that people get to certain recurring revenue levels and get stuck, and they really come down to really one thing is being able to command the right price or the average
hmm
seat price, which really is the value of your offering. And so that's kind of where I wanted to start today, to talk about this idea of a value based MSP. And if you look at MSPs today in any market, you'll find both the right value and wrong valued MSPs. And so here's an example of two MSPs that both are have 1,000 seats under management. And you see one commands a price of average of $150 per seat, and the other 100. And when you get to this, even just to this scale, look what a difference it means in your revenue. $50,000 a month, $600,000 of service revenue, basically spread over the same number of seats you support. So this really tells a story of the difference between, average MSPs and the results that they get and the top MSPs. So here's the thing. When we meet people who come into the True Methods training program, most of them think that they have a pricing or a sales issue. They're not selling enough. They can't get those prices in their marketplace. And in every case, Bob, they're actually results of the issue. And the real issue is they have a value issue in terms of their offering and the perceived value to customers. And if you can solve the value issue, you can become a top performing MSP. Everything changes. And I like to say this, right? Don't
hmm
confuse customer satisfaction with value. So you can have CSAT scores and that are great, and they tell you how happy your customers are. But your seat price, how much on average they're willing to pay you, that really tells you how valuable you are to your customers. And Bob, what do people tell us a lot? I just need more sales. You know, our CSAT scores are high. We haven't lost a customer in 5 years. Our service delivery is dialed in. But what happens when we ask them, when we find out that their average seat price is low, their value is low? They're really not addressing the root problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and it's not just that they don't price correctly. It's more the value that they're providing that allows them to charge the right price.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about it a little bit, and this is going to lay the foundation for the rest of the course. But if you can see and understand this, if you can learn to create more value with your offering, and then if you can understand the math and framework underneath that you need to follow to get there, um, any sized organization, small, medium, large, you're going to make you're going to spend your time, money, and energy on the things that are going to actually move the needle and impact all those issues we talked about. And that's the whole idea that we're talking about here. And so you ask yourself, what's the value of your MSP offering, and can you separate it from others? And we're going to use that word a lot. We use it in terms of sales. I call it sales separation. That when you're competing against an incumbent or other MSPs, can you get prospects to simply and easily see a difference, a separation between what you offer and the value of that offering compared to their other alternatives? That's what top MSPs are able to do. So we're going to talk about something when we get into the pricing area of value-based pricing, which is value that you're or technology-based pricing versus value-based pricing. Technology-based pricing is what most people have. You're building your value on features and tools and how good your support is, compared to value-based pricing, which is built on the value that all everything you do delivers to your customers, makes a business impact. So showing your customers the impact on the big costs in their business. And here's the concept, and this comes from the book Predictably Irrational. So these two green uh, dots are the same size, but the one on the left looks larger because it's surrounded by relatively smaller blue dots. So in our example, that's your service offering. That's your monthly fee, how much you charge. If you surround it by smaller blue dots, it looks huge. So that example might be you're talking to a prospective customer and you're telling them the price is 3,000 a month and their current vendor charges 2,000. So your green dot looks huge. But on the other side, if we can surround it by larger blue dots, and that example might be, think about the fact that as MSPs, we're a pretty small percentage cost to most of our customers. Someone that would spend $3,000 a month with us would likely have, depending on their business, any, two, three, or more $100,000 a month in payroll and overhead, Bob.
Hmm.
So whether we charge 2,000 or 3,000 relative to their expenses, we're still a rather small investment. And if we can show them that an increased investment in our process, our offering, our support, our packaging is going to impact the big costs in their business, that's going to make them more productive, that is going to solve issues that they attach with some cost in their business, that's going to lower their risk, within reason, they really won't care in that small percentage difference, Bob, right?
Yep.
Which really is not our opinion. This has been my experience. So, the probably the two MSPs that I've had ownership in, one that I ran and one currently I advise. Um, you know, we've sold probably over $1 million of recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue. And in almost every case, when we had to get a prospect to make the decision to come and do business with us, they almost always had to invest more than what they were spending to get different results. So this is super critical. So we teach here this concept we call the MSP value stack. Think of it as a pyramid, and the foundation of it, the bottom of it, is what most people today call the current, MSP things that everyone does. I call it the everybody stuff. Professional services. In other words, we still do, we need to upgrade things, move things, change things, implement new technology for our customers. Centralized services, all the things right that we do centrally, and we're going to talk a lot about each of these delivery areas. Of course, the center of that is your RMM, but there's a lot of other things we'll talk about with it. Support desk, obviously, we need to provide support to customers, and some consulting. So we give people advice. The generic term is VCIO, and we have a whole chapter lesson that we're going to talk about that. But at the top of the stack is really where we're building a true business, becoming a business partner with every customer, a deep business relationship. And we build that based on, establishing standards and aligning our customers against those standards, showing them the business impact at their business where they're out of alignment, and then building a strategic IT roadmap for every customer. And this is where we want to live. This is the relationship that we want to build. We want to move from a technical to a business relationship. Really not just technical strategy, but business strategy. And to do that, you need to know stuff about your customers, Bob. You need to know their business goals, their challenges and risks, their vision, their values, how, why people buy from them, their market position, their margins, their goals, all of these things. Because unless you understand those things, it's difficult or impossible to really give them technology advice that that matches up with their business goals. It's almost the definition of being a VCIO, isn't it, Bob?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then we're going to make the foundation of that the fact that we do technology alignment, and we're looking at the business impact of those misalignments. That's going to be the foundation of the relationship. And what we're going to show is this, and this is where some of the math and science that we've developed comes in, is that it really comes into how much time you have. You have so many resources, technical resources that have to be split up to do different things for customers. How much of that time is spent in those foundational items, and how much time, and which the biggest piece of that is your reactive time, and then what is left? How much of your resources are spent at the top of the stack? And the more of your time and resources are at the top of the stack, the more value you'll bring to customers, the higher prices you command. And that reactive time, as you'll learn, is the barrier. And if you can learn to control reactive time, you can control your value. And that is really what changes your business model. So, what we're going to talk about, Bob, and the heart of this is these two pieces, right, around technology alignment and VCIO. Why don't you just take us through, quickly a summary of this before we get into those lessons and dive into it?
Yeah, so the first green box there, technology alignment, is two processes. First is what are the standards that we have that we're going to use to evaluate our clients' technology, uses of technology, and compliance? They could be, industry type standards. So things like how do you set up technology, how is it configured, those things. They could also be compliance, legal things, right? How do I comply with HIPAA, or how do I comply with, NIST and the critical security controls? Those
Right.
things that we need to build. And then the technical alignment process is reviewing that objectively, reviewing the client's environment against those standards and creating an objective analysis. And we use that information, and then we move on to the second green box, which is VCIO, using that technical alignment information to assess business impact. Where things are out of alignment, what does that mean to the business? So you had mentioned that business relationship, understanding the business and then using that information to create a business impact assessment, using that information to then create a long-term client strategy, a strategic roadmap. So these are the things that have to get fixed. These are the things that align with your business goals. And then this is what we're going to need to do, leveraging technology to achieve that for you.
Yep. And so, what we're going to do in the next couple lessons is we're going to dive into each of these so that we can explain them, in detail and exactly how
Mhm.
you would do this in your business. So, if you think about it, here's kind of the way we look at it, Bob. Your standards are this box. We call it, the term we use in our training program is your superpower. And that blob that you see around it, that's each of your customers' environment. And so we're always trying to first, move them into the box as much as possible. And then where they're out of the box, that's where we tell them the impact on their business of those misalignments. And as we like to say, if you don't have a box, all you have is blobs, right?
Yeah. Right. Right. You're just blobs.
And we know that when customers get into that box, they get predictable results, and we're going to drive up their value. And they're going to see the process that we use to do it. They're going to associate that with the value. And when that happens, we're going to start to be able to sell more recurring revenue, and we're going to be able to sell it at a higher price. Because ultimately, what we want to do in the sales process, we don't want customers choosing between vendors or tools. We want them choosing between results, so that based on our offering and based on the results on their business, that when we explain it to them, they're going to see what results they get today from their current process of however they do it, in-house or a vendor, and what it would look like that our customers experience. And once we get there, um, the conversation from a sales standpoint really starts to change. So just to recap, what you're going to learn is the time, your available time, your percentage of time, available technical resources that are spent at the top of the stack is what equates to value. We're gonna something called reactive time is the barrier, and we have a term you're going to learn that's called reactive hours per endpoint per month. There's a measurement we're going to give you that tells you a lot about your company, and if you can control that reactive time, you can control your value, and everything starts to change. So. That gives everybody a little bit of overview, and we're ready to start getting into some of the detail in the next lesson, Bob.
Yeah, good, good.